Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a Troy-Bilt Storm 2420. This has a 208cc engine. It's approximately 5.7 to 6.5 horsepower. This thing is in here because it sat for 3 years. This is like the third or fourth generation motor that's on the Troy-Bilt, and it's new to me. This is a 270-XU engine, and I'll show you, if you're looking for parts for this, you want to go down here. This is in no start condition. I'm going to show you how to diagnose and hopefully get it going for you. So the first thing I want to do is I'll show you some tools that we need today. I'm not going to show you all of them because I don't know exactly all of them that we're going to need. But over here we have spark tester. This is the kind I use. You can, whatever spark tester you guys are comfortable with, go ahead and get. We have a 1/2-inch wrench that I'm going to use with the 13/16 spark plug socket. Okay, either that or a 13/16 socket will work. An extension, 10mm wrench because we're going to drain the carburetor bowl. This is a spark plug tool that's basically just a piece of fuel line that you can use to help you put the spark plug in and out. It actually helps. This is a glass container that I'm going to suck some of the fuel out of the gas tank so we can take a look at it, and a turkey baster with a piece of fuel line on it. That's what I use to get some of the gasoline out of the tank. First thing we want to do is we want to check the oil to make sure it is not contaminated with fuel. This is the new style here. It is not a screw-in cap. It's actually a push-in cap. Something new. I'm going to go ahead and check it here. Where the oil is supposed to be between the dots right here. I'm going to go ahead and push it in. Pull it out. All right, it is pretty much right on the marks, and I always check the consistency, and it feels like oil, and you're going to smell it, and if it smells like gasoline and it's really high on a dipstick, if you find out that your oil is way up here, now granted, you have to make sure that you wipe it off and then check it. And if it's way high on a dipstick, which this one isn't, this one's perfect, you definitely have to flush the engine. You have a carburetor issue. What has happened is the gas has gone from the tank into the carburetor. The carburetor let loose, which means that it didn't do its job. It let the fuel go from the carburetor into the engine, which in turn filled up the crankcase with gasoline and oil. That is a no-bueno. You do not want to run the machine that way. You want to make sure you get all that out, drain it, and you can drain your gas and oil if you have gasoline in your oil. This is your oil drain right here. Okay, and it looks like, by looking at this, this might have been some gasoline that dripped down. The carburetor is over here. It's right under here. And what we're going to do is, there's 2 bolts on here, and we're going to take off the one bolt on one side to drain that. But first I want to show you, we're going to go ahead and take some fuel out of the gas tank. This came in with pretty much a full tank of gas. I'm going to suck some of this out here and put it into a glass container so I can take a look at it. Supposedly she said this gas is 3 years old. If it is, it's really not that bad, but I can already tell that it's a little bit on the orange side. Okay, so looking at this, it's orange. I kind of don't like orange. I'd rather see a little more clear than that. I want to go ahead and we're going to drain the carburetor bowl now and see if it looks like this now. You just take a small whiff. That doesn't smell bad, but it definitely smells like it's been sitting in there a while. It's actually better if a large quantity of gasoline sat than a small quantity. Small quantities go bad. Now this one has a pretty full tank, so we may get lucky and we may be able to use that. I'm probably going to drain the whole system now, just because I want to make sure she has fresh gas when we let it go out the door. Now we're going to go ahead and take our 10mm wrench and we're going to drain the carburetor bowl. And I just want to see, because it's been sitting, so the whole point of this is to get it running again, and we're going to just see what comes out of the carburetor bowl. Usually if they've been sitting more than 2 years, it'll be green. All right, well, that's not, it's a little bit, oops, it's a little bit on the green side. It wasn't that bad, but it definitely has a shade of tint of green in it, and that's gas going real bad. Now, if you look in there, you can definitely see that the gasoline is a real dark orange, slight tint of green. I'm gonna go ahead and let this just drain like this. The good news is it's draining quickly, and it looks like it's actually clearing up. I want to get another container real quick and see if you'll see the difference in the color. So we're going to leave this right here. I'm gonna get a different container and see if we can see a difference in the color. The darker or greener it gets, the worse the gasoline is from sitting. All right, I'm gonna do this again and see if our color gets better. We may actually get lucky on this one. We're gonna go ahead and let this drain, and you can already tell it's not quite as dark. But if this is 3-year-old gas with stabilizer, we may get lucky. Try to make sure you only take out the side bolt. Do not drop the carburetor bowl unless you absolutely have to. If you had to take the carburetor apart, we would definitely be taking off everything. As you can see, it's a little darker on this side than it is on this side. And that's just because this is worse. It's been sitting in small quantities, it goes bad quicker. So this actually came from the gas tank, which is not as bad as this. So I'm gonna go ahead and now we're gonna we'll check the compression, and without having a compression tester, you basically, if you pull the pull cord, you'll feel a little bump. All right, so you pull it, it'll be easy, and then it gets kind of hard, and you'll feel a little bump, and then it gets easy again, and that means you have compression. You'll feel a bump. If you feel a bump here and there, that's good compression, and it does have it. So now what I'm going to try to do to make this a little bit easier to start, we're going to go ahead and use the electric starter. It's going to spin it faster. So we're going to go to the controls here. Okay, so it looks like the new generation does not allow us to have a throttle. So it looks like all we have is a choke. We have an on and off switch here, and we have a very chintzy primer bulb, it looks like. And that's just my opinion, but that's pretty, we'll see how that holds up. Okay, so choke on, and you can tell by the arrow, we're gonna put the choke over to the left. That's on. Make sure your ignition switch here, the plastic key, has to be in, or it will not start. And then you're gonna push this, I wanna say 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Your electric starter is here. And I would recommend the cord that you use, it must be a 3-prong plug, okay, because that's a 3-prong plug on here. Okay, female plug, and then your male plug here. Always make sure that your cord is about the same thickness, no thinner than the cord on your electric starter that comes off the machine itself, and you'll be okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in here. No good. I'm gonna take it off here. I'm just taking the choke off to see what happens. All right, I'm gonna put the choke on. I'm gonna prime it a couple more times just to see if maybe it just needs a little more fuel. Okay, now at this point, I wanna go ahead and check the spark. Okay, this is where the spark plug is. You wanna make sure you grab the boot itself, not the wire. You wanna make sure you do not pull the wire, pull the spark plug boot. Because if you pull the wire and this gets stuck on the spark plug, you can pull the wire out of the boot, and then you're gonna be in trouble trying to get it back together again. So the spark plug is down in here. I have an inline tester, all right, that I use, and it works 99% of the time. I like it. The hard part is getting this into the boot and having it stay properly because it doesn't really clip in too well, but we want to see this flash. So I'm going to go ahead and use the electric starter and see if we get a flash. All right, so we have good spark, and I thought we had a good flow of fuel coming to the carburetor. So at this point, what I do is I'm going to go ahead and take your spark plug tester off. Now mine's, okay, take it off and out. We have good spark. We're going to go ahead and take that spark plug out. 13/16 socket. I'm going to use an extension and my ratchet. And I take it, once I get it loose, I go ahead and take my spark plug remover tool. It's like a flexible rubber. You can just use fuel on, like I said, and it just makes it much easier than trying to battle with the socket. And then you unscrew it. Now, I'm checking a couple things. Now, this one here is extremely wet. So that just tells me that maybe we have a bad spark plug, because it looks like, I mean, it definitely looks like it was getting the fuel. Now, the fuel may be 3 years bad. Maybe that's not why it's firing. But let's go ahead and we have to cross-reference this over. All right, so I just gapped this to 30 thousandths. This is a BPR6ES, and I love NGK spark plugs, so I use them. I always start them by hand. or with the rubber grommet, it helps you get them started, but it's just a lot easier to screw them in this way, get them seated, and then I use the socket. Now there is a possibility that I flooded it, so I'm gonna go ahead and try starting this without the choke on. All right, so the choke I'm gonna leave off. There is no throttle. That is kind of strange. I don't know about that, but let me go ahead and give it a shot again. All right, now it didn't start. We definitely have compression because I can feel it in the, I can feel it when I pull the pull cord, so that's not our issue. And I'm gonna see how much fuel is on this spark plug. I think we may just have very bad gas that's not firing up. And what I'm gonna do from this point is I'm gonna cheat it. Well, it definitely had some fuel on there, and it definitely was not firing on there. Yeah, it just splattered on my wrist here. So we definitely had gasoline on it. So now I'm gonna clean this, I'm gonna blow this off with some air, just to make sure we start fresh. I'm using a little can that I have that has gasoline in it, and this is Aspen 4, and I'll show you that in a minute, and as you can see, it's squirting just fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead right down in the throat of this spark plug hole. That was three pumps, so I just got enough in there. If this runs, we definitely know all that fuel that we have inside is bad. So we're gonna have to flush everything out, and we may even have to take the carburetor apart and clean it. But at this point, we're gonna go ahead and just put the spark plug back in with that fresh gas I have in the cylinder. This should fire and shut down, or it might fire and stay running with the other fuel. I'm not gonna choke it. We're just gonna go ahead and give it a couple of pops. Okay, so it did exactly what I thought it was gonna do, is that it just burned off the fuel that I sprayed down there. So you could probably try this 1 or 2 more times. I'm gonna go ahead and flush the carburetor out and get all the gas out of the tank, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I just flushed the carburetor, I flushed the whole tank, and we now have Aspen 4 in it. This is a ethanol-free, it's an alkylate fuel. It's a very clean burning fuel. You have to look up on the internet and find out in your area where you can get it. You can't get it at your local hardware stores anymore. I'm pretty sure you have to go to like a small engine place. But this is much better than the other fuels out there on the shelves. It is a cleaner burning fuel. It's unbelievable. I call it moonshine. I'm gonna go ahead and show you. I'm gonna flush the carburetor now. I haven't flushed the carburetor since I flushed all the oil out. I put the Aspen 4 in. We're gonna go ahead and pull this off now. Now this should be a big difference in color. I call it moonshine. We're gonna have some of the yellow because of the remnants from the other gasoline that was all through the fuel line and everything. We're just trying to clean it out. And I'm gonna go ahead and close this off, and I'm gonna start fresh again just so I can show you. I'm gonna go ahead and pour this in a container, but you can see right now that that is much clearer. All right, it's almost white. All right, my next batch I get out of there, it should be even cleaner than that because that had some old stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one more time. I'm gonna try it without choke first, and we'll see what happens. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and put a choke on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and run this outside. The hunting and surging is not good, but I did put the choke on a little bit. It actually smoothed out, took the choke off. I just think that I need to run this a little bit longer. If the hunting and surging does not go away when the choke is in the off position, that means that carburetor does have some kind of a blockage in there, and you do need to rebuild the carburetor or replace it, one or the other. I'm gonna go ahead and take this outside. We're gonna run it for 20 minutes, see if it gets better, and hopefully it will, and we'll be right back. So I ran this outside and it still hunts and surge, and this is going back to a customer, so unfortunately we have to take the carburetor off. I thought we were going to get lucky, but now we're just going to have to get into it. So we're going to need to take off this cover here to get to the carburetor, and this is a new engine style for me, so it looks like they've gone to plastic. This is all plastic cover up top here. I'm not sure how that's going to, I guess in the wintertime when you're running these things, the muffler's underneath it, it's not going to melt. We'll see, time will tell. Looks like they're making it a little bit easier on us to take these covers off. Those 4 bolts are really easy to get to. Now I can see that there is those collars in the plastic, and that keeps the plastic from getting crushed. So beware that you may lose these. Now this is underneath here, it looks like, so we'll have to see if we can. I'm going to put the choke to close. I'm going to try to pop this out from underneath here. Okay, we do have the ignition wires over here. So we have ignition wires here. Okay, and we do have this is the primer line right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the primer line off. This is my clip remover tool that I use for a lot of different things. And you do have to be careful when you're taking the primer line off, because you don't want to break the 90-degree plastic part that it goes onto. I see they have gone away from using clips, but the 90-degree plastic piece right here can break, so be careful. Normally we can take these out of the way now, but it looks like it's going to be a pain because you can't, because the wire is short here. Now I think these clips, yeah, these clips right here, you have to push them. There's an indent, or you have to kind of push them in to get them to unclip, and they're a real pain in the butt. So let me just go ahead and take this. It looks like I might be able to take this top cover for the muffler off just by taking off these 2 bolts here. And they are short. They are very short bolts. So remember that the 2 bolts back here, they're real short bolts. And these guys that were taking off the front were very long. So keep that in mind. And we had one here that wasn't quite as long as the other one. So we have to make sure we get them back where they came from. Now this is still attached. It looks like it's attached up here. Because what I was trying to do is I was just going to move this up out of the way. I was going to just try to move this cover up out of the way. So let me just see. That looks like it might be a 13 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And this will just, oh, they're not making that easy, are they? So they made some things easier. And this is the gas tank, and this is underneath the gas tank. So we're going to go ahead and leave that alone. So this here. All right, so by loosening up this, taking this off, I was able to, you can see the wire is pinched under here. This is the ignition wire, was pinched under this piece here. But what I can do is I can lift this up and then pull this out and around, just like that. Now we can get to it without disconnecting this. We're at our carburetor. Now I can see that they made the opening a little bit different. And now, it looks like you could get water in there, which I don't like that much at all, but it's easier to take your tube off the top. This is the breather tube, and that's easy to come off there. We do have to pinch the fuel line. And then you have to take off this clip, has to come off right here. And they always have the clips facing in the rear. They turn the clip around the back side so it's not rubbing on anything. All right. Then we have to go ahead and push this up. Okay, so now we have to take off the 2 nuts to hold the carburetor on. And these should be 10 millimeter socket. Take them off. Now before you take it all the way off, you can always take this light spring off first. I try to do that with a very small pair of needle nose pliers, but and this governor here it's full speed all the time, so you can't make it go slower or faster, so we can't adjust that. The spring tension pretty taut right now. Take it off gently. You can't take this off until you pull the carburetor out. So we're going to go ahead and take this off. And there is spacers in this right here, so you have to be careful of these spacers that you don't lose them. And there is a gasket here, which really you don't really need, but this one's in good shape. Boy, I'm surprised this thing didn't run correctly after 20 minutes. It looks so clean. So you're going to go ahead and pull this off. Now you slide the carburetor out, and eventually it'll line up straight with the slot here, so you can take your governor arm out and just lay it off to the side. Pull this out all the way. There is a gasket here, and if your gaskets are questionable, definitely replace them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this to the bench. Just looking inside, you can see a little bit of the fuel that may have went bad on that one side of the brass part right there. You see how it gummed up? So we definitely have a problem inside here. Now there is going to be fuel in here, but we're going to go ahead and take it apart and see what we got. This is the bolt that drains the side of the car, that drains the carburetor bowl, not the one on the bottom here, but this one here has to line up with your primer elbow. Okay, just remember that when you put it back together again, so you get it in the right spot so you can use it again. If you turn it the other direction, you won't be able to drain it when the carburetor is on the machine. I'm going to assume it's pretty clean in here because it ran fairly well, and that's really, now you can see a little bit of stuff right here, a little crusty. I don't know if you can see that or not. Now this is on the wrong side. This is the gasket for the bowl, and it's usually inside here. There is remnants of a little bit of tan color that is probably gas that has gone bad, but it's really not in bad shape at all. You go ahead and just pull the pin for the float right here, and it'll just fall out. And then you pull the float out, and I always put this needle valve under a magnifying glass, and I make sure that it's, and you have to be careful if you take this off the float, there's a spring right there, and you have to just slide. I hold the spring, push down a little bit, and then you slide it out. And you got to be careful. I'm holding on to the spring right now. The spring will come right off like that. All right. And I can still see a little bit of like rust color. Like this is a little rusty color here. That might be dirt that's settled. And here is our needle valve, which I will take over to a magnifying glass and check it out real quick, and then I'll be right back. Yeah, it's fine. And we're just looking to see if there's a very deep cut where the needle valve sits in the seat. And the seat is right here. It's the brass part that's inside there. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to clean this out. Now the jet's right here, and the jet looks dirty. And that would be from gas going bad. So I'm going to put a flathead screwdriver in there, and you have to be real careful. It's brass. You want to make sure you're firmly planted on the jet with the slot head screwdriver so it does not strip it. Okay, now this all came out at once, and I'm going to show you. This is the emulsion tube, and you can tell that it's dirty. All right, so the emulsion tube definitely needs to be cleaned up. It's not bad though. I'm looking through all the holes, and I don't see anything that I can't see through, which is good. This is the main jet, and the main jet actually doesn't look bad, but I can't see through it. So I'm going to use, I have a little poker wire that I use. Not playing poker, it's a poker, it's my poker wire. And I just run it on the inside. And then we take a look, and you can see light. So that's pretty good. Small holes inside that carburetor. I don't know if you can see it inside there or not, but there's 3 or 4 holes in the back. You can probably see them. We need to clean them out. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this out by poking the holes. Each one, it's a little tricky to get each one poked, but you just have to be patient. We're going to go ahead and take, there is a jet in here. So you unscrew, this is the idle screw. You're going to unscrew this. Now you have to be careful when you put this back that it is the idle screw, so you're, actually this doesn't idle, so we don't have to worry about that. You just have to make sure it sits halfway in on this guy right here, which is another jet. And I usually use my tool, my clip tool, but that just popped right out. And on the back side of that, which you might be able to see that or not, is that there is a hole there. I'm going to try to use my thinner poker here, and it should go through the center. And then you should be able to see it through that hole right there. So you can see that mine went through. Okay, so that's clean. We're going to go ahead and, if you can use an ultrasonic cleaner, I would suggest it. We're going to go ahead and clean this up with an ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I have this out of the cleaner, the ultrasonic cleaner, and it did get a little bit better. The emulsion tube still looks a little dirty there, but it's just that's not coming off. A lot of people ask me what I use inside it. I just use Simple Green and water mix, and I did actually put the spring in. I also put the float in, and the float came out real nice. I cleaned this up myself and got all there was dusty. It was like a tan color all over this thing. So now it's good to go, and we're going to put it back together again. You're going to start with the spring on the end of your needle valve here, and then you push it down a little bit, and then you have to go into your float like so. Now this is very nice. I do like this. Is the China engines, in my opinion, are a takeoff of the Hondas, and Hondas make a great machine, but having the automatic adjustable float is basically just putting a spring under the needle valve. So a lot of the American-made, well, the Tecumseh motors you had to adjust the float. You don't have to adjust the float on these. The emulsion tube, as I was going to tell you, that it fell out. The flat spot, the big flat spot on the emulsion tube, you want to make sure that's facing the jet. So you're going to put the tube in with the skinny end in first, and basically just tap it in there, let it go all the way to the bottom. Your needle valve jet is going to, there's threads here on the beginning of your tube. These threads are for your nut right here, for your locking your bowl in. This is going to go past those threads. The jet is going to go down past them, so you kind of have to jiggle it around a little bit to get it to go down inside there, and then you're going to take your flathead screwdriver and then screw it in until it gets snug. And you do not want to over tighten this, because if you have to take it out again, just snug it up. They can get stuck, and as you can see inside there, it's down the bottom. If they get stuck, you're not going to be able to get them out, and you'll be throwing the carburetor away. Now this is the bowl gasket. We're going to go ahead and put it in the recess here. And sometimes the bowl gaskets actually will do a little shrinking, and you have to kind of pull them. This one here is a little bit tight. You have to make sure they sit flat inside that recess, and this one is not sitting flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it back out again. Actually, it looks like it might. I like to make them sit exactly the way you're supposed to, so you don't get a leak. All right, so that's actually, it got better. Now see how it's not sitting right there? I have to stretch this a little bit. Actually, this is, all right, we got it. Now it's sitting in there flush. I'm going to go ahead and put the float in. The float only goes in one way, like so. Oops. And then you have to put your pin. I did actually clean the pin in the ultrasonic cleaner. Put the pin through. And then just check to make sure it's moving up and down correctly. And it is. And there is no adjustment on the float level. Then you're going to go ahead and put your bowl on. Make sure the nut on the side that you drain the fuel with is lined up with your primer, 90-degree angle. Put the nut on. 10mm wrench or socket, just tighten it up, make sure it's tight. Go around to the other side. This jet here I also put in the ultrasonic cleaner, but we did check it to make sure that it was clear before. And you're just going to put that, it only goes in one way. You can do it, it has a flat spot on each side, and there is a flat spot here that it recesses against. And you're going to push it down as far as you can get it. And then your idle screw goes like this. Make sure you don't cross thread it. And because this machine does not have an idle, I'm just going to put it halfway over your jet to keep that. That's what holds that jet in, your idle screw, believe it or not. All right, so we're going to go in, leave it sticking out a little bit, but don't go too far, because if you go too far in, then you may mess up your high speed, but I doubt it. So right there, halfway in. Now we're ready to go ahead and put it back on the machine. We already have the gasket from before right here, and as you can see how it goes, just keep that in mind. The gasket's good. We're going to go ahead and slide this on. and then you remember you have to put the arm in. I'm going to use a pair of pliers, needle nose, because this is a full throttle linkage right now. It's actually set at full throttle, so I have to bring it out a little bit. And then that goes in like so. And that went pretty easily. Just line up. Now I'm going to bring over the... I'm going to push that back in. I'm going to go ahead and put the fuel line on. This is a little snug. Try to put that out of the way. Release. You can release your fuel line. Now, if your fuel line's old, now this is a pretty new machine. I'm just flexing it back because that was pinched for a while I was cleaning the carburetor. Now we have this gasket here. This gasket only goes on one way. Just like that. All right. And you can go ahead and put this on, like so. Kind of do them evenly. Here's the vent tube here, breather tube. That makes it, that's a nice feature. I like the newer style, and loosening up this extra bolt actually made everything get a little bit looser, so you can tuck this away. Like, you have to tuck this underneath this right here, and you have to make sure that this electrical wire goes up between the muffler guard here and this plate here. So we're going to go between that. Going to go over here. Get your choke rod through the center here like so. Now over here we do have to put on the, this is the primer line, and you have to make sure that this is on your 90 degree. And it sits on there pretty tight. They actually got away from using the clamps. Then we're going to have to put this, we have to tuck it all underneath here. Like you can see this little tab right here goes inside the cover. And because we took this nut off the top, it makes it so much easier to put everything back together again, like so. I'm going to start over here. A shorty goes here. Actually, I'm not sure. Let me just see something here. All right, so we have this one here is a little bit longer. Just a tick, actually they're the same. They're close, but the one, believe it or not, one is actually longer than the other. And the real short one goes on the muffler side here. So they don't want you having extra threads showing out so they don't rust and you won't be able to take them back off. So make sure you put your smallest two bolts go on your muffler guard in the back. And then the one that's a little bit bigger goes here. And then you have, they put a lot of different sizes. I'm not liking that too much, but they have two long ones and then even a little bit shorter but longer than the last one we just put in here. I'm going to assume that this, not quite the longest one goes here, and then the two long ones go up here, and that is exactly how they go. I like to put in all the bolts before I tighten them up. And then we're going to go ahead and put in this. This guy here actually has a little bit of a little puzzle. You see that little notch right there? It actually goes right like that, and that's perfect. And I'm not exactly 100% sure. Maybe you can lift the engine off with this, but the reason why that's there is, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that one down first. It's a 13mm socket. Okay, and then all the rest of them are 10mm. Okay, we're ready to start it. We had the choke in the on position here, so choke is on. We did have the true fuel in here. I'm going to go ahead and prime it. 1, 2, 3. Going to give it a pull. Okay, so as you saw, I was running it without the choke 100% and there was no more surge. As good as it ran, when I ran it for the 20 minutes before I rebuilt the carburetor, it still was popping and missing and doing a little hunting and surging. So this is going back to a customer. I wanted to make sure it was 100%. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll choke on. We'll just try it one more time. That's pretty much it for how to diagnose a no-start condition, a year 2021 Troy-Bilt Storm 2420. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.